Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you're currently located. Thank you for joining us today. We will start off today's hearing with testimony from Mr. Reidel. So over to you, please.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So I'm Skylar Reidel. You can call me Rocky. I'm the managing attorney for Reidel Law Firm. I'm a Texas attorney. I'm also a licensed customs broker, and I've been practicing for 10 years. I primarily represent small, medium-sized businesses trading with the United States. In addition to my comment letter, I submitted my position and key takeaways is I believe we should broaden AGOA coverage to as many countries as possible, if not all countries in Africa. And my second opinion and key takeaway would be we should reduce the influence of political and foreign policy decisions on the AGOA eligibility reviews. My concerns around those is that the decisions have become or have a tendency to become political, and AGOA eligibility is being used as an instrument in some circumstances for foreign policy, as opposed to as an economic tool, which what I believe it was designed to do, to raise the least empowered in the continent of Africa and increase U.S. trade. My other concern is that the annual reviews is disruptive to economic planning, especially for U.S. businesses trying to trade in Africa, losing access to AGOA because of a income graduation through an annual review or a foreign policy decision or a political decision on the economic eligibility of a country under AGOA is jarring, to say the least. And not to say how it affects the African nations and traders in Africa, but on the U.S. side in particular, I can attest that small businesses and medium-sized businesses already have a difficult time trading in Africa and building infrastructure and building investments, and AGOA uncertainty only adds to that challenge. And finally, I know I've discussed this personally with colleagues and good friends of mine in the industry and international trade, and I would like to address two rebuttals just preliminarily, and we can also address that if you have further questions. But I know some folks believe that the U.S. should not lower tariffs if African nations do not do so mutually, right? Lowering tariffs together. My rebuttal to that is that the United States is already quite well advanced and our infrastructure is solid, right? We have a tremendous headwind behind us and head start. So I believe that unilaterally lowering tariffs and expanding AGOA eligibility will not put U.S. businesses, especially small and medium-sized businesses, who I represent, I don't believe it will put them at risk. The second rebuttal that came up most often with my colleagues was concerns around child labor practices or forced labor practices in the continent of Africa and how we can use AGOA to help address that. I believe the annual review and removing countries from AGOA eligibility is not the way to handle that. For example, in China, we have used the Uyghur Forced Labor Protection Act to sanction and specifically address the companies who are committed to those abhorrent practices. Whereas in Africa, under AGOA, if we decide to use that criteria to determine a country's eligibility, we punish the entire country as opposed to sanctioning the companies. So I believe that there's a discrepancy there that we should not rely upon in making decisions under the AGOA eligibility. That concludes my remarks. Thank you for having me.